Welcome to the Superhero Sidekick Leadership Coaching Podcast with Joel Smith and Joe Baker. We're here to help you develop your superpowers. This is the Superhero Sidekick Coaching Podcast. I'm Joel Smith.
I'm Joe Baker. We're not here to be the superhero. We just want to be your sidekick and help you along in building your business, building your not-for-profit. Let's help you grow it fast and really scale.
Be sure to check us out on Facebook and visit us at superherosidekick.com. Hello, this is the Superhero Sidekick Coaching Podcast. I'm Joel Smith, and Joe Baker is here. Joe, how you doing today?
Hey, doing good.
Excellent. So, Joe's talking about the 5 love languages, and it comes from a book by Gary Chapman, and it was written, I don't know, maybe 20 years ago or so, maybe more. It's been a long time ago, but it's a classic, and anybody that wants to have a strong marriage should read this book. It is awesome. Anyway, I'll just go over these real quick. So, number 1, words of affirmation is the first one. Second is quality time. Third is acts of service, and then tangible gifts, and then physical touch. Keep going. Tell us how your experience there.
And so, on the next one here, quality time. It's one of the biggest pieces that I teach on fundraising is being a good listener. When it comes to quality time, it's about like really just not you presenting what you're doing. It's really digging in and being someone who really deeply understands someone, listens to someone. When I'm coaching a young man on hey, he thinks he found the perfect girl. It's like, well, I'm saying, like, hey, make sure you're not the one doing most of the talking. You want to do lots of listening, and that really is a love language of just listening, like being someone who hears somebody else, who asks genuine questions, and it's if you've done it right because it's whoever, when you go out to dinner, it's whoever finishes their plate first. You need to finish your plate first because you had a lot of food in your mouth while they were talking, and so it's, you want to be listening, not talking. And so I like to think of it as a 70-30 rule, where they're talking 70% of the time, you're talking 30% of the time. And actually, one of the people that gave me a big check, I remember he talked the whole meeting, and I never got to ask him for anything. I never got to any. And at the end of it, he was like, "So, did you have a purpose for this meeting?" And I said, "You know what? Like, I have already learned so much from you in this time. I've enjoyed hearing some of your stories. Like, don't even worry about that. I put this meal in the budget a long time ago. I'll present that to you. I'll present to you next time we meet." And I never got to meet with him again. Yeah. At least I did meet with him again, but before I met with him again, he wrote me a really big check, which I didn't ask for.
Right. Joe, this 70-30 thing, this is really interesting when you think about this and how it all plays out. So sometimes you have a situation where each person on both sides of the conversation are trying to get their words in. So they're trying to do 70% and only listen 30% of the time. And when you have one person trying to listen 70% of the time while the other person is talking 70% of the time, there's a mismatch. The first scenario where both people are trying to talk, there's no communication going on because both people are just trying to say, they just want to share. So they're seeking more to be understood than they're seeking to understand. The second scenario can be kind of lopsided. One person's a good listener, the other person's a good talker, and it can get a little hairy and a little lopsided and not so good. But then what happens when you have both people trying to be in that 70% of listening? So you got two people that are working hard to out-listen each other. And so, you got one person listening, and if you're talking, you stop and ask them questions, right? And then they'll stop and ask you questions. So when you go back and forth because both people are genuinely interested in each other, that's a magical time when you get two great listeners communicating, because everything that they're asking and talking about is about the other person. And that's the magic too. That's where like marriages click, right? When two people are trying to outlove each other, or two people at work, they're trying to serve each other and they're trying to outserve each other. That's where the magic happens. So I love that ratio, that 70-30.
Yeah, and really learning a set of really good questions will take you to the next level. And one of the ways to practice this is practice it with your spouse. Like Ann and I have these like boxes of questions that we like to ask each other at dinner, and that we like to ask each other after the kids go to bed, and we look up some new ones. And like some ones that have been my favorite lately is, hey, can you name one thing you did last year that was really courageous? And so you ask that one question, and it's like the next 20 minutes, are booked, talking about that subject and what they did in the last year that was really courageous. Or when was a time that that you loved someone and it really hurt? It really took a lot out of you, And it's like questions like that, like really kind of evoke the heart, get someone talking, And it's like you don't want to be weird, but you can lead someone down a trail and then ask them these kind of questions. It's also really important with quality time is to learn people's story, and to get to take the time to ask them questions about their story and their past and their parents. And, it's like you can understand so much about a person when you really understand their story.
Yep.
And I think that's a big piece of quality time.
Yeah, I agree.
And so next one is acts of service. Joel, maybe I should just ask you, what are some aspects of acts of service that you think might be connected here with fundraising?
Ooh, to fundraising. That threw me for a loop a little bit. So acts of service that's related to fundraising. Well, I think fundraising should be attached to some kind of a mission, and any kind of a mission should be all about making a difference in other people, and serving and doing things regardless of what that is. It's just about giving and serving. So whether it's building a house in Mexico, or whether it's filtering water in Africa, or sharing your faith in wherever you are, all of this should always be focused towards people that have a need that we need to fill. So that's what I think of with acts of service. And we can pray for people. We can even share the gospel with people. But if we don't meet their needs, if we don't help them not be hungry, if we don't help them, live a better life, a healthier life, whether it's healthcare or whatever it is, if we don't do those things, they're not going to be open to bettering their lives in other ways, whether spiritually or otherwise.
Yeah. And so with that, like, some of the best ways that I think there's really good acts of service in this is oftentimes when I invest in donors, like invest in time with donors, I discover that there are things that their kids need, and so I sometimes will engage in those things and like really engage their kids and like support their kids in different ways, or or invite their kids into the ministry I'm doing in different ways. Another big piece of acts of service, and one of the goals of really is getting someone to a place where you're on the same side of the table with them, helping them with their giving, helping them think about their giving. And there's some really neat organizations. One of my favorites is called the Signatory, that actually helps people set up family foundations, manage their giving really well, and do it in a way that actually is the most beneficial to the organizations they give to and themselves. Mm-hmm. And so there's some tremendous tax advantages in America to give. And so, and a great act of service is connecting them with the Signatory and walking them through how to make it a gift that's the most beneficial for everyone. And so those are a couple pieces of acts of service. And then there's a lot of other little things too. Like you want to look for opportunities to serve. Look for opportunities to, hey, I could help you with that. I could do that for you. I think of one donor that is always having issues with their phone, or with their computer. And whenever I'm hanging out with them, I say, hey, can I look at your computer? Can I see how things are going? And I give them a couple little tutorials. And that means so much to them, to just take that little bit of time and say, I know you're not good with computers. I'd love to just help you. So those are a couple little spots of acts of service that I've done.
Yeah, fair enough. So what's the fifth one here, Joe?
So the fifth one is kind of a little awkward when it comes to outside of a spouse, physical touch. You starts to sound a little bit like Joe Biden or something, sniffing people's hair or something. But to be honest, highly emotionally intelligent people, they end up doing a lot of touching of people. It's so important that you greet people well. Like when you first see somebody, that handshake needs to be strong. It needs to look them in the eye, speak a word into them, like, a hug, like an embrace. If it's like not on the first time you meet, but on like the second or third time you meet, like someone that, it's something that feels endearing to them. And so, a hand on the shoulder at times, like it's important that we learn how to do this. And learning it for you might be you go through some awkward stages, or maybe physical touch wasn't big in your family growing up. It's something that you need to learn to be really emotionally intelligent. And so at the end of the day, it's, when people give to you, they're taking a pretty big risk and they're trusting you. And so, giving is risky, so you want to embody these love languages so that they really trust you and believe in you.
Yeah. Well, that physical touch, it can be a little bit different, and you need to be discerning about it. Of course, you have to be appropriate, but there really is something about, like you're talking about, Joe, about a good handshake, or just a victory high five, just something that you can express yourself, and or maybe sometimes it's just a touch on the shoulder to say, hey man, I got your back, but it always has to be filtered through what's appropriate and what the expectations are. But one of the things too, Joe, is that when we develop a strong relationship with people, and we kind of get past some of the shallow, or peel off some of the shallow levels of the onion and get there, then that physical touch, it's a lot more clear of what's appropriate and what's not, and it can be it can be appropriate, more appropriate when you have a stronger language. And I have an example of that. So I have a recent leader in my company that has just left our company. She just left a little while ago, and last week, in fact, and she worked with us for 4.5 years, and did a really good job. Grew a tremendous amount in our company, and she put in about a 3-4 week notice and left on great terms, and it was really awesome. And I went in to the place, the location, and got to see her at the end, and it was the last day I was going to work with her, and I said, I'm going to give you a big hug. I know that's not appropriate for me to hug my managers, but this is your last day. I'm going to do it. So I gave her a big hug, and it was appropriate because I'd never done that before, but it just made sense. She was moving on. She was, bummed about leaving, but she was moving. She's actually moving to Colorado. So you might see her there, Joe. But anyway, okay. So I think that physical touch thing can be really powerful when it's done right, and when it's within the context of a strong relationship. Yeah.
Yeah, and it needs to be one that we discover and learn how to do right. And so really here, I wanted to share that. So I really think there's a sixth one, and it's partly just because of who I am, but I think it's different than quality time. It often gets lumped into quality time. But I think it's its own category, and for me, it's taking people on adventures. And I actually think that's not only a sixth one of these. I actually think it's my spiritual gift, which I actually see embodied in so many characters in the Bible. So many times is Jesus inviting people like, hey, come out onto the water, Peter, into the risky water when everybody else is scared. And there's so many examples of God inviting people in to these kind of dangerous places where they really grow in relationship with him through it. And that's what he wants out of it. And in the same way, we want to be people that invite people in to something that feels risky, that feels where their life matters, and letting the relationship bond through that. And whenever I'm coaching a young man, he's like, man, I think I found the woman of my dreams. Like, she checks all the boxes. It's like, okay, well, take her on a roller coaster as soon as you can. Get something that gets your blood going, because it's in those experiences that oftentimes we have the deepest bonds with people. For me, one of my main ways of doing development was rock climbing. In fact, in fact, almost if you look through my Facebook, almost everyone I've rock climbed with over the past, like, I don't know, 8 years, they've either been a donor of Save the Storks, somehow a strategic partner of the organization, or they're my wife and kids. It's like, I don't rock climbing. I begin to integrate that because it was such a great way for me to do something that was extraordinary to them, but easy for me, and kind of really invest in them in that way. And so,
yeah, you're giving them something that they wouldn't have come across on their own. No one just goes out and says, "Hey, let's go rock climbing." Somebody needs to invite them into that, otherwise they won't really consider it. But yeah, so you're relating this to a love language, like, hey, when you care about somebody enough to say, "Hey, come experience something that I've experienced that's great." The love part is where you're wanting them to stretch themselves and grow and to experience something different and maybe broaden their horizons as far as what they can do, and that really helps people. Now,
yeah,
as long as you're not like dropping them off the, they're not like crashing to the ground and dying on the rocks. But
so that's a good point. So the sweetest spot, Joel, you want to be when you're taking someone on an adventure is you want to get them as close to that edge as you can without pushing them over the edge. If they go over the edge of what they can do, so if you push them to the edge of what they can do and they do it, they feel so exhilarated.
They're on a whole new level then.
At the end of it, they're in afterglow. Their mind is blown that they went beyond where they thought they could. If you push them beyond where they can, they feel like you're unsafe.
Right.
And they feel like you're not someone that could take them somewhere.
Yep.
You're actually putting their life at risk.
Yep.
And that's true both in business and with and with rock climbing. And so we invite people in on adventures. We want to push them. Now, let me give you some examples because everybody here is not a rock climber or a skydiver, of course. But here's some examples you could use. One of my favorites is actually just going to escape rooms. Escape rooms are an amazing way to have a 60-minute interaction with a purpose where you're trying to like solve these puzzles before the bomb explodes.
And you're working together to do it.
Yeah, you're working together to do it, and there's a time limit. And there was one escape room I did with some of our donors where we got out within like 3 seconds of like that timer. And I just remember we were just so pumped. We were all like hugging, and it was just this amazing experience.
Yeah, you're creating an emotional bond that people will remember forever.
Totally.
If you do something boring, like just go out for dinner and have a good steak and whatever, it's like, yeah, we've had a million steaks before.
Yeah, but anyone can do this one, and it's like find things that bring some of those aspects of excitement, adventure, risk, and bring you deeply together. Some other ones I've done with people, I've gone to shooting ranges and shot guns. I've been snowboarding. Our big one was snowmobiling. But if you really invest in someone on this adventure level, not only will they give to your ministry, but they will put you in their will. They will deeply, deeply love you and appreciate you, and want you to, and trust you to in what you pitch to them and invite them into. And you want to be a part of it.
You're also building credibility too, because if you're really trying to build something great, some kind of a great mission, and you are a part of connecting other people to this same mission, whether it be financially or otherwise, and if you can show them that you are about breaking outside of the mold, rising above the level of comfort, and getting something done that's never been done before, or maybe it's been done before, but by very few people, only those that dare. And you position yourself where you show them, hey, this is what I do. I do great things. It costs a lot, but I do great things. And I don't let these little bumps get in the road. I push past them and I get there. And they see that you can do that through an event or just connecting with them through challenging them to, through sharing those adventures. then they know you're going to be able to make it happen too in the real world with whatever that mission is that you're working for too. So I love that
Yeah.
connection. Yeah. So,
And it's adventure is going to be different for different people, and I want to tell you one story. Early on when I was building Storks, Ann and I didn't even take a salary from it. There was no money to. We were just broke. But we had somebody give us a 6-figure donation, and we were trying to figure out how do we really honor that and really develop a relationship with them. And we knew that they didn't just want to come to Colorado and just walk around our office. And so we rented a vacation rental on the Oregon coast, and we just invited them for a few days to just come with me and Ann, and basically just walk on the coast. And we would just kind of vision cast where we were going, and that was such an amazing aspect, and it was also amazing because it was kind of the life I want to live too. I liked doing those things, and my wife likes doing those things, and they grow us too as we bond. So take it up 5 years later, the man in that story, he developed Parkinson's, and he had it so bad that like he would walk just so slow, like just barely walk, like just these tiny little steps. And yet I wanted to take him to this kind of like secret beach that I discovered that required a bit of a hike to get there on an unkept trail. And I thought we could do it, man. But 2/3 the way in, I was like, this is the dumbest decision I ever made. Like, I mean, it was like I was literally like almost carrying him down this trail, and I'm like, it's so long, and this beach better be magical. And we finally got there. We brought lawn chairs, we sat down, and it was magical. It was so amazing. We were sitting there. What did we talk about? We didn't spend the whole time talking about my ministry. We talked about his girlfriends from high school and some funny stories that happened to him like 50 years ago, and it was like just side sticker laughter while having an entire beach to ourselves, and then I walked back, and he later told me, he says, Joe, taking me to that beach was one of the craziest things you've ever done. And he says, and I am so glad you did. And I could just tell, like, he could see that, man, I took a big risk, and we made it, and he made it. And really for anybody else, that would have just been a walk. But for him, that was huge. It was the best thing he did all that year, he told me.
yeah, that's great. Hey, Joe, these are great examples of the 5 love languages, and appreciate you sharing all those. And you brought a different light to these languages too, applying them to fundraising and just connecting with people on a mission.
Yeah, and most people think that fundraising is about like sending spam and like inviting people to like burnt chicken dinners. It's like, no, fundraising is about like, going hiking and doing an escape room and really investing in people.
Oh, that's terrific. Well, hey, if you are out there and you are interested in learning more about fundraising, or really just interested in the 5 love languages, and you want to talk to Joe, feel free to go to superherosidekIck.com, and you can connect up with Joe and learn a little bit more about that. Or if you have an organization out there and you're really wanting to raise some more funds and just really get better at it, whether it be learning how to do it yourself, and you could use a coach like Joe to come alongside of you and help you with that, or if you need someone to really kind of take the reins and help you take your mission to the next level, go to superherosidekIck.com, and Joe can get you hooked up and help you on your journey there too. So anyway, we would love to have you subscribe to our podcast, and join us on Facebook, and tell us what you think, and help us get better. So anyway, Joe, any last thoughts here before we end the podcast here?
No, I don't have anything more. I just want to tell you, like, invest in people, like, give to people, be generous to people, and don't forget that money is a byproduct of serving people. And And when it comes to ministry, it's not just the mission that you're doing that is ministry. Fundraising can become part of your ministry too. And it's really important that you that you are serving people by loving them and investing in them and praying with them and getting to know them. That's really what, are some of the biggest parts of being a great fundraiser.
All right. Hey, those are great words to end on, Joe. So, hey, thanks for teaching and helping us, and thank you everybody out there. And we will see you next time.